Let me ask you something honest, not a question you answer out loud while you're scrolling through your phone, but a question you sit with when the room is dark and the only sound is your own breathing. Have you ever sat on the edge of your bed staring at a phone that won't ring, wondering if the version of you that was capable of being loved just disappeared? You've done the work, haven't you? You deleted the photos. You blocked the number, you told your friends you're doing fine, and maybe during the day you almost believe it. But then 200 a.m. arrives and that familiar, heavy silence starts to settle in your chest. You start replaying the final argument, the last look they gave you, or worse, the moments when everything felt perfect. You ask yourself, if I gave everything I had and it still wasn't enough, what is left of me? You feel like a ghost in your own life, mourning someone who is still walking around the world without you. Most people tell you to just move on, to find a distraction, to believe that time heals all wounds. But I've thought about this for a long time, and I want to tell you something different. What if that crushing weight you feel isn't the sound of your life ending, but the sound of the wrong doors finally locking so you can find the only one that actually matters? What if your heartbreak isn't a tragedy, but a secret weapon? Real love doesn't look the way they showed you in the movies or the books. We grew up being fed this idea of the soulmate, this magical person in music who arrives and suddenly solves the puzzle of our existence. We are taught that love is a destination, a prize you win if you're good enough, pretty enough, or successful enough. And because we believe that when a relationship falls apart, we don't just lose a partner, we lose our sense of worth. We think if they left, I must be fundamentally flawed. We treat heartbreak like a house fire that destroyed everything we built, leaving us standing in the ashes with nothing but regret. But here's the truth most people skip. Hollywood love is based on attachment and ego, not on the soul. It's based on the idea that another person is responsible for your happiness. When you rely on someone else to be your light, you will always be terrified of the dark. The person who broke you was also broken, carrying their own shadows and their own unhealed patterns. They didn't leave because you weren't enough. They left because they couldn't hold the love you offered. Their hands were too full of their own fear to catch what you were giving. And that realization is the first step toward understanding that your pain is actually a refined tool of clarity. I've spent a lot of time thinking about why we keep choosing the same wrong person over and over again. It's a strange thing, isn't it? We find ourselves in a new relationship with a new face and a new name, but after a few months, the old familiar tensions start to surface, the same feeling of being misunderstood, the same fear of being abandoned, the same exhausting dance of trying to earn someone's affection. Let me ask you something honest. Are you in love with the person standing in front of you? Or are you in love with the potential you've projected onto them? We often fall in love with a fixer-upper project because it distracts us from the work we need to do on ourselves. We choose people who are emotionally unavailable because deep down we are afraid of true intimacy ourselves. It feels safer to chase someone who runs than to stand still with someone who stays. This is the pattern of the familiar. Your brain prefers a familiar misery over an unknown joy. You keep picking the same lock with a broken key, wondering why the door won't open. But your heartbreak is the moment that key finally snaps. It's the moment you're forced to stop looking at the door and start looking at the hand that's holding the key. Your heart isn't weak for repeating these patterns. It's just been poorly guided by a map that was drawn when you were too young to know the way. There's a difference between needing someone and choosing someone. Meeting someone comes from a place of hunger, a void inside you that screams for validation. When you need someone, you aren't really seeing them. You're seeing a solution to your loneliness. You become a beggar for their attention. And beggars can't be choosers. Jorge music at tour, you accept crumbs and call it a feast because you're starving for connection. But choosing someone comes from a place of fullness. It's when you look at your life and realize that while you are perfectly capable of walking alone, you would like to share the view with someone else. This is where the pressure test comes in. Real relationships aren't built in the summer. Moments when everything is easy and the sun is shining. They are built in the winter when the pressure of life reveals the cracks in the foundation. I've seen people stay loyal for years, have music pouring their identity into a partner only to be left the moment things got difficult. And I've seen people confuse intensity, that spark music that feels like a lightning bolt, with actual love. Intensity is just friction, it burns out. True connection is a slow, steady warmth that doesn't flicker when the wind blows. Your heartbreak has stripped away the intensity, leaving you with the cold, hard truth of what was actually there. It's a painful clarity, but it's the only ground you can truly build on. Loving the right way starts with something most people skip. The quiet, uncomfortable work of being alone with yourself without needing to be rescued. We live in a culture that views being single hush music as a waiting room, a place you sit until your real life begins with someone else. Music, but that waiting room is actually the laboratory where your future happiness is created. You cannot give what you don't have. If you don't have peace within your own skin, you will constantly demand that your partner provided for you. This creates a toxic cycle of people pleasing and emotional unavailability. You become a version of yourself that you think they want, and in the process, you lose the very person they were supposed to fall in love with. The fear of abandonment is a powerful ghost. It whispers that you have to be perfect to be kept. But perfection is a cage and love cannot breathe in a cage. Your heartbreak is the universe's way of breaking music that cage open. It's a brutal invitation to stop being a version and start being a person. It's a chance to music meet the version of you that exists when no one is watching, when there's no one to impress and no music one to please. That person, the one who is hurting but still breathing, is the one who is finally ready for a love that lasts. Let's look at the growth sequence that happens to music when you finally stop fighting the pain and start listening to it. It starts with the feel stage. You have to acknowledge the raw, ugly, unedited emotions. Don't try to be strong or zen about it. If you're angry, be angry. If you're devastated, let the four hold you while you cry. You can't heal what you won't feel. Then comes understand. This isn't about blaming your ex. Music. It's about looking at your own history. Where did this pattern start? Why did you think you had to earn love? Once you understand the why, you can move to release. Releasing isn't about forgiveness in a religious sense. It's about realizing that holding on to bitterness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You let go because you're tired of carrying the weight. Then you rebuild. You start making small promises to yourself and keeping them. You buy the coffee you like. You take the walk. You read the book. You create new beliefs about what you deserve. And finally, you open. But this time you open with wisdom, not fear. You realize that a heart that has been broken and put back together is actually stronger than one that has never been tested. It's like kinuji, the Japanese art of fixing broken pottery with gold. The cracks become the most beautiful and strongest part of the vessel. The beauty of the gold in those cracks isn't just for show. It is the evidence of your survival. Let me ask you something honest. Why are you so afraid of the silence that follows a breakup? Music. Most of us run from it because in the silence we have to hear our own thoughts. We have to face the fact of music that we've been using another person's presence as a shield against our own insecurities. But that silence is where your secret weapon is forged. When you are no longer distracted by the drama of a failing relationship or the frantic energy of trying to save something that's already gone, you finally have the space to hear the truth. Real love doesn't look like a constant battleground. It doesn't feel like you're constantly auditioning for a role in someone else's life. If you feel like you have to be on all the time just to keep them interested, that isn't love. It's a performance, and performances eventually have to end. Heartbreak is the curtain falling on a show that was never supposed to be your life. It's the moment you stop acting and start existing. Music, it's painful because the mask is stuck to your skin, but the air on your face for the first time in years is worth the sting of the removal. The difference between loving someone and needing someone is the difference between a garden and a cage. When you need someone, you are constantly checking the locks. You are worried about who else they are talking to, why they didn't text back in 10 minutes, and what they're thinking when they look away. That's not love. That's a hostage situation fueled by your own fear of inadequacy. You think that if they leave, you will cease to exist. But look at you. You're still here. Your heart is beating. Your lungs are taking in air, and the world is still turning. The person you thought was your oxygen was actually just a heavy coat you were wearing in the middle of summer. You're sweating and exhausted from carrying them, and you're terrified to take it off because you've forgotten what it feels like to be light. Healthy love is when two whole people decide to walk the same path. They don't complete each other. They complement each other. They are two separate circles that overlap to create a shared space, but they never lose their own borders. Heartbreak is the process of reclaiming your borders. It's the hard work of remembering where you end and they begin. It's the realization that you were a whole person before they arrived, and you are a whole person now that they are gone. I want you to think about the seasons of the heart, because we often try to live in a perpetual summer. We want the heat, the growth, and the constant light. But nature doesn't work that way, and neither does your soul. You are currently in the winter of your heart. Winter is cold, winter is quiet, and winter everything looks dead on the surface. But underneath the snow, in the deep soil of your being, things are resting. They are gathering strength. They are preparing for a spring that they cannot yet see. If you try to force a flower to bloom in January, you will kill it. The same is true for your healing. If you try to rush into a new relationship because you can't stand the cold of your own loneliness, you are just planting seeds in frozen ground. They won't take root. You have to let the winter do its work. You have to let the grief settle. You have to let the old version of you die off so the new version has room to grow. The season of isolation isn't a punishment, it's a foul period. It's the time when the soil of your life and music is being replenished with the nutrients of wisdom and self-reflection. Don't fear the frost. The frost is what kills the parasites of your past habits. Let's talk about the mirror test because this is the part most people avoid. We spend so much time making the list of what we want in a partner. We want them to be kind, loyal, successful, funny, and emotionally intelligent. But we rarely look in the mirror and ask, am I the kind of person the person I want would want to be with? We want a partner who is healed, yet we are bleeding all over everyone who gets close to us. We want someone who communicates clearly, yet we hide our true feelings behind walls of sarcasm and passive aggression. We want someone who is loyal, yet we aren't even loyal to our own needs and boundaries. Your heartbreak is a mirror. It shows you exactly where your own gaps are. It shows you the parts of yourself that you've been neglecting. If you keep attracting people who treat you like an option, it's because somewhere inside you haven't decided that you are a priority. The world treats you the way you treat yourself. This isn't some hustle advice. It's a deep spiritual law of resonance. When you begin to treat your own heart with the same tenderness and respect you've been begging for from strangers, the entire frequency of your life shifts. You stop being a match for the people who want to use you, and you start being a magnet for the people who want to honor you. There is a law I like to call the whole person law. Most of our relationship problems stem from the fact that we try to find a person who can fill our missing pieces. If we feel boring, we find someone exciting. If we feel insecure, we find someone powerful. We use them like a prosthetic limb, trying to make up for what we think we lack. But a relationship built on filling holes is always destined to collapse under the weight of expectation. No human being can carry the burden of being your entire sense of self. It's too heavy. Eventually, they will stumble. And when they do, you will fall music because you were leaning all your weight on them. Heartbreak is the moment that prosthetic is taken away and you're forced to learn how to stand on your own two legs again. Her music, it's painful and you might fall a few times, but eventually you develop the muscle. You become a whole person. Her music, and when two whole people meet, they don't lean on each other. They stand to music next to each other. They share the weight of life, but they don't depend on each other for their basic stability. This is the only way to build a relationship that truly lasts, by being someone who doesn't actually need the relationship to survive, but chooses it because it makes a good life even better. You didn't lose love. I need you to hear that again because your mind is trying to convince you that the love is gone just because the person is. You didn't lose love. You lost someone who couldn't hold the love you offered. Love is a capacity within you. It's like a spring of water. Just because one person decided to stop drinking from your well doesn't mean the well is dry. The water is still there. Your ability to care, to be vulnerable, to see the beauty in another person, that is yours. It belongs to you. They don't get to take that with them when they leave. They can take the memories. They can take the shared sweaters. And the hey music can take the furniture. But they cannot take your capacity to love. In fact, by leaving, they've actually cleared the way for someone who has the right size container for what you have to give. Think about how much you loved someone who didn't even treat you right. Now, imagine how much you will love someone who actually cherishes you. Imagine the power of that love when it's finally met with the same intensity and respect. Your heartbreak is the cleaning of the pipes. It's the clearing of the debris so the water can flow even purer when the right person arrives. Let's look at the winter heart rule. This rule states that you are allowed to be unreachable while you are healing. We live in a world that demands we be on 24/7. We're expected to post our highlights, to respond to every text, to keep showing up at parties even when our souls are screaming for a dark room and a soft blanket. But your heart needs a period of dormancy. You are allowed to take yourself out of the game for a while. You are allowed to say no to things that drain your energy. You are allowed to be boring while you rebuild your foundation. Most people rush back into the dating world because they are afraid that if they stay away too long, they will be forgotten. They are afraid the good ones will all be taken. But the good ones aren't a limited resource. The right person for you is on their own journey, likely learning their own lessons. You aren't in a race. You are in a process. The winter heart rule is about protecting your energy like it's the last ember of a fire on a cold night. First, I'm ready to skip this. I may not call you all. You don't let she music just anyone blow on it. You shield it. You feed it small pieces of wood. In music, you wait until it's a steady flame before you try to use it to light the way for someone else. The person who broke you is also broken. I'm not saying this to excuse what they did. I'm not saying this to make you feel pity for them while your music still bleeding. I'm saying this to take the power away from the villain narrative. When we see our ex as a monster or a genius who calculated our destruction, we give them too much credit. Most people don't set out to break hearts. They're just stumbling through the dark with their own unhealed traumas, reacting to their own fears. Trahem musica, there are people who don't know how to handle their own shadows, so they cast them onto you. When you realize that their behavior was a reflection of their own internal chaos and not a measurement of your value, the chains start to fall off. You don't have to wait for them to apologize to move on. You don't have to wait for them to realize what they lost. Their realization doesn't change your reality. Your reality is that you are free. You are free from their confusion. You are free from their inability to show up. You are free from the brokenness they tried to make you share. Heartbreak is the moment you hand their baggage back to them and say, "This was never mine to carry." Let me ask you something honest. How much of your current pain comes from the loss of person, and how much comes from the death of the future you had planned with them? We don't just fall in love with a human being. We fall in love with a timeline. We build entire cities in our minds filled with anniversaries, her music, as shared homes, and growing old together. When a relationship ends, her music, it's like an earthquake levels that city in a single night. You're not just mourning a partner. You're mourning a version of yourself that only existed in that future. But here is the secret weapon of the broken. When the city in your mind is leveled, you are finally standing on open ground. For the first time in years, you aren't confined by the walls of who you thought you had to be for them. Hey music, you are standing in the wreckage. Yes, but the horizon is visible again. You can build anything now. You can build a city that is stronger with better foundations and wider gates. The pain you feel is the clearing of the land. It's the demolition of a structure that was never going to be strong enough to weather the real storms of life. Don't rush to rebuild. Stand in the open space for a while. Breathe the air of your own freedom, even if it feels cold right now. There is a principle I call the mirror principle of love. It suggests that we don't actually see people as they are. We see them as we are. When you were deep in that relationship, you were likely projecting your own capacity for loyalty, kindness, and depth onto them. You thought they were the source of the magic you felt. But the magic was actually coming from your own heart. You were the one who brought the meaning to the mundane moments. You were the one who turned a simple dinner into a memory. You were the one who stayed when things got hard. All those beautiful qualities you admire in the memory of them, those are actually your qualities. They were just the mirror you used to see them. Now that the mirror is broken, you think the beauty is gone. But the beauty is still in the one who is looking, not the glass that fell. Your heartbreak is the moment you realize you don't need the mirror to be beautiful. You can carry that light into the next chapter without needing someone else to reflect it back to you. The person who left took the glass, but they didn't take the light. Let's talk about the safety test. Most people confuse excitement with connection. They think that if someone makes their heart race and their palms sweat, it must be the one. But in the world of the nervous system, that spark is often just an alarm bell. It's the feeling of your old wounds recognizing a new opportunity to be repeated. Real healthy love feels like an exhale. It feels like coming home after a very long day and taking off your shoes. It's quiet. It's safe. It's consistent. If you were constantly wondering where you stand with someone you aren't in a relationship, you're in a state of high alert survival. Your heartbreak is the moment your body finally forces you to stand, hey music, down. It's the exhaustion that follows years of being on guard. This is why you feel so tired, not just emotionally, but physically. Your soul is demanding a rest from the excitement that was actually just stress in a fancy dress. Use this time to recalibrate your internal compass. Learn to value peace over intensity. Learn to look for the person who makes you feel steady, not the one who makes you feel dizzy. I've thought about this for a long time, and I've realized that most people treat love like a transaction. We think, gave you X, so you owe me Y. We give our time, our vulnerability, and our bodies, and we expect a guarantee in return. But love isn't a contract, it's a gift. And once you give a gift, it no longer belongs to you. If they choose to throw that gift away, or if they don't know how to treasure it, that is a reflection of their character, not the value of the gift. You didn't waste your time. You practice being a person who gives. You practice being a person who cares. Those are skills that will serve you for the rest of your life. The time isn't lost. It's invested in your own emotional development. Loss you're feeling is actually a gain in wisdom. You now know exactly what it looks like when someone doesn't value what you bring to the table. And more importantly, you now know that you can survive the rejection. That makes you dangerous in the best way possible. You are no longer a person who is afraid of losing love because you know that even if you lose the person, you remain intact. There's a difference between letting go and giving up. Giving up is laced with resentment and the feeling of defeat. It's saying, I can't do this anymore because it's too hard. But letting go is an act of supreme power. It's saying, I'm choosing to stop carrying this because it no longer serves my growth. It's a conscious decision to open your hands. Think about a person holding on to a hot coal, waiting for the other person to feel the burn. That's what holding on to an ex feels like. You think your misery is somehow punishing them or proving how much they hurt you, but they aren't feeling the heat. You are. Your heartbreak is the moment the pain of holding on finally becomes greater than the fear of letting go. It's the moment you realize that your hands are needed for other things, for building, for creating, for hugging yourself. Letting go doesn't mean you forget. It doesn't mean the pain magically vanishes. It just means the pain is no longer the center of your gravity. You move it from the driver's seat to the back seat. It's still in the car, but it's no longer steering. We often talk about the one, but I want to introduce you to the concept of the whole. We are taught that we are half circles looking for our other half to make us complete. This is the most dangerous lie in the history of romance. So music, if you are a half circle, you will always be looking for someone to fix you or fill you. You will be dependent on them for your very shape. But if you realize that you are already a whole circle, even if that circle is currently bruised or dented, then you change the entire game. A relationship between two whole circles is a beautiful thing. They can roll together, they can move in the same direction, but they don't need to be fused together to music exist. Your heartbreak is the jagged edge where you were trying to fuse yourself to someone else. It hurts because you're peeling back the parts of yourself that you tried to give away. But as you heal, those edges smooth out, you become round hay music again. You become self-contained. And a person who is self-contained is the only person who can truly choose a partner rather than just grabbing onto whoever is closest shame music because they're afraid of falling. Let me tell you about the choose don't need principle. Most of our suffering in relationships comes from the need. I need them to text me so I feel important. I need them to stay so I feel worthy. I need them to love me so I can love myself. When you operate from need, you are always in a position of weakness. You are a beggar at the table of your own life. But when you move into choose, everything changes. I don't need you to tell me I'm worthy, but I choose to hear it from you because I value your opinion. I don't need you to stay to be okay, but I choose to build a life with you because we share a vision. Heartbreak is the brutal necessary death of the need. It strips you of your crutches. It forces you to find your own balance. It's the most difficult training ground in the world, but if you stay with it, you emerge as someone who can never be truly manipulated again. You become someone who enters a room and doesn't look for who likes them, but rather looks for who they like. You move from being the hunted to being the one who decides. Real love doesn't look the way they showed you, because real love includes the freedom to leave. If someone is with you because they feel guilty or because they're afraid of being alone or because they're financially tied to you, that's not love. That's an arrangement. True love requires two people who are both capable of walking away, but who wake up every single morning and say, I am still here because I want to be. This is why heartbreak is so terrifying. It's the manifestation of that freedom. They use their freedom to leave. And while that hurts, it's also the only thing that makes their eventual return or the arrival of someone new actually mean something. You don't want a prisoner. You want a partner. Your heartbreak is the universe reminding you that you cannot control another human soul. Music, you can only control the environment you provide. If you provide a garden of growth, respect, and kindness, and they still choose to leave, then they were never meant for your garden. They were a bird passing through. Let them fly. Your garden is still yours. And music, the next bird that lands will be one that actually wants to build a nest. I want you to think about something I call the law of emotional capacity. Most of us go through life thinking that our heart is a fixed size, like a room that only has so much space for furniture. When someone leaves, we feel like they've taken the floorboards and the roof with them, leaving us exposed to the elements. But the truth is, your heart is more like an ocean. It is vast, deep, and capable of holding both the storm and the calm at the same time. The pain you feel right now isn't because your heart is small. It's because it's expanding. Heartbreak is the stretching of your capacity to hold truth. It's the process of making room for a version of love that is actually big enough to sustain you. Before this, you were playing in the shallows. You were settling for a love that was easy, or a love that was familiar, or a love that only required a small part of you. But now you are being forced into the deep water. It's scary because you can't see the bottom. But it's the only place where the really big things can live. You are becoming Schmusic, a person who can hold more empathy, more wisdom, and eventually a more profound joy. Let me ask you something honest. How often did you silence your own intuition just to keep the peace in that relationship? We've all been there. We feel that little tug in our gut, that quiet voice that says something isn't right, or this person isn't being honest with you, and we push it down. In music, we call it being supportive or patient, but really, we are just trading our truth for the illusion of safety. Your heartbreak is the moment that intuition finally stops whispering and starts screaming. It's the moment the bill comes due for all the times you lied to yourself to protect them. It hurts because the truth is a sharp thing, and it has to cut through all the layers of denial you built up. But that cut is a surgical one. It's removing the parts of your life that were based on a lie. The reason you feel so raw right now is that you're finally being honest with Schmusic yourself. And while honesty is painful, it's also the only thing that is actually real. You are finally building on solid rock instead of shifting sand. There's a concept I've been reflecting on lately. The difference between a reasoned person, a seasoned person, and a lifetime person. Most of our suffering comes from trying to make a seasoned person music into a lifetime person. We need someone who is exactly what we need for a specific moment in our growth. Maybe they teach us how to open up, or maybe they show us what we don't want, or maybe they just provide comfort during a lonely stretch of the road. But then the season changes, the lesson is learned, and instead of saying thank you and letting them go, we try to freeze the weather. We try to keep the autumn leaves on the trees by taping them there. Heartbreak is the wind that blows those dead leaves away so the tree can survive the winter. You didn't fail because the relationship ended. The relationship succeeded in doing exactly what it was meant to do. It brought you to the next version of yourself. The lifetime people are rare, and they can only find you when you stop holding on to the ghosts of the seasons that have already passed. Let's talk about the flywheel of trust. We often think that trust is something you either have or you don't, like a light switch, but real trust is a flywheel, a heavy wheel that takes a lot of effort to start turning. But once it's moving, its own momentum carries it forward. In your last relationship, maybe that wheel was spinning in the wrong direction, or maybe it was rusted shut. You spent so much energy trying to force it to turn, trying to believe someone who gave you no reason to that you're now completely exhausted. Your heartbreak is the moment you stop pushing that broken wheel. It's the moment you step back and realize that you deserve to be with someone who helps you push. Trust isn't just about believing someone won't lie. It's about the safety of knowing they will show up for the small things day after day until the momentum is so strong you don't even have to think about it anymore. You are currently in the stage of cleaning the rust off your own wheel. You are learning to trust yourself again, and that self-trust is the only foundation that can eventually support the trust of another. I've thought about this for a long time, and I want to talk to you about the echo of the wound. Sometimes the reason a breakup hurts so much isn't actually about the person who just left. It's because their departure has triggered an old memory, a time when you were a child and felt unseen, or a previous heartbreak that you never fully processed. In music, the current pain is just an echo of the original wound. When you're sitting there at 2:00 a.m. crying over someone who treated you poorly, you're often actually crying for the younger version of you who first learned that love was something they had to beg for. Your heartbreak is a doorway. If you're brave enough to walk through it, you can find that younger version of yourself and finally give them the comfort they never got. You can say to yourself, I see you. I know you're hurting, and I am never going to abandon you again. When you become the person who stays for yourself, you stop being so terrified of other people leaving. You become your own emotional anchor. Let me tell you about the whole person law in action. I want you to picture two people standing in the field. One is holding a cup that is half full, and they're desperately looking for someone to pour into it. The other is also holding a half-full cup looking for the same thing. When they meet, they both try to pour into each other's cups and music, but since they are both half empty, they just end up spilling what little they have on the ground, and they both leave feeling more drained than when they started. Now, picture two people who have spent the time to find their own internal spring. Their cups are overflowing. When they meet, they don't need anything from each other. They just stand shade music together and let their abundance mix. That is what healthy love looks like. Your heartbreak is the moment your cup was knocked over, revealing that it wasn't a spring after all. It was just a container you were hoping someone else would fill. The work you're doing right now in the quiet and the pain hour music is the work of digging down until you hit the water. It's the work of becoming the source of your own life. There's a trap we fall into called the nostalgia filter. Your brain is a master at editing out the bad parts of a memory when you're lonely. You remember the way they laughed, the way they smelled, the one time they did something kind. You forget the hours of cold silence. You forget the way they made you feel small. You forget the anxiety that lived in your chest like a stone. Heartbreak is the process of taking that filter off. It's the uncomfortable task of looking at the whole picture, not just the highlights. Real, I want you to try something honest. When a good memory pops up and makes you feel like you'll never find that again, I want you to immediately pull up a true memory. Remember the night you cried yourself to sleep while they were in the next room. Remember the way they dismissed your feelings, music not to be bitter but to be accurate. You cannot heal if you are romanticizing your own destruction. Accuracy music is the first step toward freedom. Let's look at the mirror principle from another angle. Sometimes we stay in relationships not because we love the other person, but because we love the person we are when we are with them. Maybe they made you feel exciting or smart or important. When they leave, you feel like you've lost those parts of yourself. You think, I'm not interesting anymore or I'm not beautiful anymore. But those qualities were always yours. They were just the stage light that happened to be shining on you at the time. The light is gone, but the actor is still on the stage. You are still the person who can think those thoughts, feel those feelings, and possess that beauty. Your heartbreak is the moment the stage lights go out and the theater goes dark. It's terrifying, but it's also the only time you can see the stars. You are about to discover that you shine quite brightly on your own without any help from a spotlight. I want you to sit with a thought that most people find uncomfortable, but I found it to be one of the most liberating truths there is. Happiness is not the absence of pain, but music, the presence of meaning. We spend so much of our lives trying to avoid the winter seasons of the heart, thinking that if we feel sadness, we are somehow failing at life. But look at what your heartbreak has done for you already. It has stripped away the pretenses. It has forced you to be real. It has made it impossible for you to keep living a life that was too small for your soul. In that way, your pain has a profound intelligence. It is the part of you that loves you the most, screaming that you are settling for less than you were made for. When you stop fighting the pain and start asking it what it's trying to protect, you realize it's protecting your future. It's ensuring that you don't spend another 5, 10, or 20 years in music, a house that was built on a foundation of almost enough. This current discomfort is the labor pain of a new version of you being born. Music, it's hard and it's messy, but it's the only way to get to the other side. Let me ask you something honest. Are you afraid that you've already had your best love, that you've peaked and everything from here on out will be a second-rate version of what you once had? I've thought about this a long time, and I want to tell you that love isn't a finite resource like oil in the ground. It's more like a muscle. Every time you love someone deeply, even if it ends in heartbreak, you are expanding your heart's capacity. You are learning the language of connection. Music, you are becoming a more skilled lover, a more empathetic friend, and a deeper human being. The love you had before was a training ground. It taught you what you value, what you can endure, and what you will no longer tolerate. If you could love the wrong person that much, just imagine how much you will love the right one. Music, you aren't moving toward a lesser love. You are moving toward a more mature love. A love that doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. That isn't based on the high of the chase, but on the depth of the understanding. You haven't seen your best days yet because you haven't yet met the person you are becoming through this fire. There is a law I call the law of emotional gravity. We tend to be pulled toward the people who match our own internal level of self-worth. If you were feeling low, if you were feeling like you aren't enough, you will naturally be attracted to people who confirm that for you. You will find people who are critical or distant, music, or inconsistent because their behavior feels right to your wounded heart. Heartbreak is the moment that gravity is interrupted. It's a violent break in the cycle. Right now, as you sit in this pain, you are essentially recalibrating your internal weight. As you learn to sit with yourself, as you learn to tend to your own needs and stand on your own feet, your center of gravity shifts. You start to become heavier in your own skin, more grounded, more solid. And as you become more solid, the people who are inconsistent or lightweight in their intentions will no longer be able to pull you into their orbit. You will find yourself naturally repelled by the very patterns you used to find attractive. This is why you must stay in the winter long enough for the change to stick. If you jump back out too soon, you'll just fall back into the old gravity. I want to talk to you about the communication mirror in a relationship. We often complain that our partners didn't listen to us or that they didn't understand our needs. But if you look closely at the wreckage of your last relationship, ask yourself, how clearly did you speak your truth? Not the truth you thought they could handle, but the real raw truth of what you needed to feel safe and loved. Often we hide our needs because we are afraid that if we show them, the other person will leave. And then they leave anyway, and we are left with the double pain of being alone and knowing we weren't even truly ourselves while we were with them. Your heartbreak is a clean slate for your voice. It's the opportunity to practice a new kind of honesty, an honesty that says, this is who I am, this is what I need. And if that is too much for you, then you are not for me. It feels terrifying to be that vulnerable, but it's the only way to find a love that is actually built for you. You don't want someone who loves a version of you. You want someone who sees the real you and says, stay. Let's look at the metaphor of the emotional library. Every person you've ever loved is a book on your shelves. Some were short stories, intense, fast-paced, and over before you were ready. Some are long, complicated novels that took years to read and left you feeling exhausted. Some were tragedies that broke your heart. Most people try to burn the books that end painfully. They want to erase the memory, to pretend those chapters never happened. But if you burn the books, you lose the lessons, you lose the growth. Your library becomes empty. Instead of trying to forget, I want you to take that book and put it on a high shelf. It's part of your collection. It made you the reader you are today. To music, you don't have to keep rereading it. You don't have to keep obsessing over the ending. You just have to acknowledge that it's part of your story. The next book you pick up, the one you start writing for yourself today, will be better written because of the ones that came before it. You now know how to recognize a plot hole. You know when a character isn't being honest. You are a better author of your own life. Now, let me tell you about the momentum of the small. We live in a world that praises grand gestures, the boombox outside the window, the surprise trip, the public declaration of love. But real lasting relationships are built on the small moments that happen when no one is watching. It's the way someone makes you a cup of tea exactly how you like it. It's the way they hold your hand during a boring car ride. Same music. It's the way they respect your boundaries even when they don't understand them. Your heartbreak has likely shown you that the grand gestures were just a distraction from a lack of daily hey music consistency. You were hungry for a meal and they kept giving you candy. Right now, in your healing, I want you to focus on the small for yourself. Don't worry about fixing your life. She music could just worry about the next hour. Make your bed. Drink some water. Take a breath. These tiny acts of self-care are the building blocks of self-respect. They are the evidence that you are worth tending to. When you start showing up for yourself in the small ways, you will eventually find it impossible, music, to accept someone who only shows up in the big empty ways. I've thought about this a long time. And I want to ask you something honest. Who were you before the world told you you had to be loved? We all started out as whole, curious, vibrant children. And then bit by bit, we learned that to get affection, we had to be good or quiet or helpful. We started wearing masks. You started performing. We carried those performances into our adult relationships, wondering why we felt so lonely. Even when we were lying next to someone, your heartbreak is a massive power outage. All the lights of the performance have gone dark. The audience has left the building. And in that darkness, if you're quiet enough, you can find that original version of yourself, the one who doesn't need to perform to be worthy. That person is still there. They've just been waiting for the show to end so they can finally have your attention. This period of being broken is actually a period of being unmasked. Music, it's an invitation to meet the person you actually are, not the person you've been pretending to be for the sake of a love that didn't stay anyway. The love you deserve is a love that feels like a quiet strength. It's not a love that requires you to shrink yourself. It's not a love that makes you feel like you're walking on eggshells. It's a love that sees your mess, sees your scars, sees your winter seasons, and says, I'm not going anywhere. But to find that love, you have to be willing to be the person who provides that for yourself first. You have to be the one who stays. You have to be the one who doesn't walk away when things get quiet and uncomfortable. Your heart isn't weak. It's a resilient, powerful engine of survival. It has hey music, been through the fire, and it is still beating. That beat is a drum calling you forward. Hey music, it's telling you that you are ready for something real. You are ready for a love that doesn't just complete you, but one that witnesses you as you continue to grow. The person who left was just a shadow passing through. The sun is still there. And as the sun rises on this new chapter of your life, you will realize that the heartbreak wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of your masterpiece. You are standing at the edge of a new horizon. Music, the path is open. The air is clear. Now take one small brave step forward.